This is episode 40 of This Makes Me Happy. As we get ready for the new year, many of us plan resolutions. For 2017, I challenge you to make resolutions that will make you happy. Please send us a voice note to hello@thehappypodcast.com with your name, where you're from, and what will make you happy in 2017 for a special New Year's episode. Welcome to This Makes Me Happy, a podcast about people and what makes them happy. I am your host, Bernardo Margulis. I'm a designer, art director, and educator, and I'm the principal of This Makes Me Happy, a design studio where I help my clients with branding and visual communications. I'm very happy to present This Makes Me Happy, the podcast, where each week I chat with a different person about what makes them happy. My guests come from all walks of life, and each of them shares their own personal happy stories. Join us every week for a unique conversation. Hello, today I am very happy to have Ben Kassoy with me. Ben is the editor-in-chief of DoSomething.org. He is the co-author of 8 books and former online columnist for Glamour and Details. Ben, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. How are you doing?
I am doing well, and I'm very happy to have you. We were talking before the recording. My sister connected us, and I heard so many great things about you through her. I'm really excited that you're here recording with me.
I'm very flattered to be here. And as we were also talking about before the recording, I hope I haven't set the bar too high. So the pressure's on for both of us, I think.
Well, I'll take the challenge if you take the challenge, but I have to say there's more online about you than about me. So I don't think it's a challenge for me. I think it's just enjoying all the wonderful stuff that I've read and the wonderful stuff you'll say. So
thank you.
I think the bar is higher for you because you've set it up high.
All right, we'll see. We'll see what we can do. Help me through this.
So tell me, before we get to the core of the conversation, is there anything else you want people to know about you?
No, that's all. That's great.
All right. So let's get to the meat of it. What makes you happy?
Very simply, writing makes me happy.
What about writing? Define that a little more.
So much, so many things. I think one of the main things about writing that makes me happy is that there's something so magical and something so exhilarating and liberating about coming up with an idea, discovering an idea, or excavating an idea that feels new and original to you, and then doing sort of another round of creation where you actually put it down on paper and you just sort of see something unfolding before your eyes that previously hadn't existed to you. So to be able to create something of yourself and to see yourself unfold before your own eyes is a really kind of surreal and magical experience. And I think I experience that every time I write.
So you use the words exhilarating, liberating, create, unfold, excavate. Is writing all about yourself, about exploring yourself?
I think it depends. I think for me, some of it is and some of it isn't. So not to get too promotional here, but just for some context, the work I do for DoSomething.org, which is this global movement of young people making positive change in their communities. The writing I do there is on the staff, and it's very collaborative, it's collective. And we're writing, the writing that I do is sort of in the service of social justice. And so a lot of that is selfish in some ways, but it's definitely more collaborative and more selfless than the other kind of writing I do, which is freelance, which is all the writing I do there, and I used to be ashamed to say it and I'm not, is extremely selfish and self-indulgent.
So before we started recording, you were talking about the differentiation between DoSomething.org and your freelance. So could you talk a little more about that?
Sure, yeah. So DoSomething.org, like I said, activates a generation of young people to make positive change in their communities. We run these national and global campaigns, all of which have a simple call to action, like collect period products and donate them to a local homeless shelter, or collect sports equipment in your community and donate them to a community center that serves underserved kids. those are the types of calls to action we have. And we have over 270 campaigns live on site at any time. So my job for DoSomething.org is to oversee the content on our site and several of our channels. And then the freelance work I do is totally different. It's the vast majority of it is personal essays and creative nonfiction. I used to write a dating column for Glamour and Details online. I've co-authored a series of kids books. So I sort of keep my life very, very separate. And I think where my life at DoSomething.org and my freelance life overlap is wonderful and very fulfilling. And I also think that what keeps the two separate allows me to always enjoy doing both.
Do you feel differently about the joy you derive from DoSomething.org writing for that and then writing for freelance?
I do. I really do. I think there's something really gratifying at DoSomething.org about connecting with people. And when I say connecting with people, one is connecting in a collaborative sense. So it's being in rooms, being in meetings, being in brainstorms with folks on all different teams, and knowing that we are collaborating to create something bigger than ourselves. And then the other way of connecting is connecting with young people all over the world who are so passionate about making change and just they might not have the tools, or they might not have the know-how or the ideas, or they might not have a community of people supporting them. So to be able to do work that facilitates and cultivates young people really discovering that doing something good for other people feels so good, that is really, really fulfilling, sort of in the sense of of service. In a lot of ways, it feels less creative and more social justice focused, even though it is creative and deals with ideas. And then on the freelance side, it feels much more personal. It feels much more artistic, for lack of a better word. It feels much more creative, and that is really, really exciting in a totally different way, because DoSomething.org feels like I'm connecting to something larger than myself, and my freelance work feels like I'm connecting more closely to myself, or learning more things about myself, or becoming bigger as an individual in some ways.
Now, going a little bit into the freelance stuff, even within that, there seems to be different buckets of what you write. Like, you write something like 6 Rules of Casual Sex, and then you talk about the gifts you give your girlfriend, and then you write children's book or co-author children's book. Is that diversity intentional?
I think the diversity comes from the fact that I like to tell people I have really broad interests and a really short attention span. Like, I'm just all over the place. And I think that comes from my parents. I really have to credit my parents for sort of giving me permission to just do and try and explore different things. And they sort of did that for my older sister, who's 5 years older than I am. And she did everything. She danced, and she played volleyball, and she was on the cheerleading team, and she was a swimmer, and she went to nerd camp. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. And so I just followed her into everything that I did. And she turned out to be a really great athlete, and I turned out to be a writer and a dancer. And my little sister is a comedian and an actress. And I think that my parents really gave us permission to sort of be exploratory and be free in how we wanted to spend our time and what we wanted to do. And they also didn't have these notions about gender roles. So boys do this and girls do this. It was never that. It was always me going from, playing goalie in a soccer shootout and then jumping in the minivan and changing into my tights and ballet slippers for rehearsal. And so I think the fact that I've always been allowed to have broad interests and wasn't forced to pigeonhole myself or specialize has made me feel interested and also free to explore a lot of different things in my writing. And the other part of that sort of comes from expression. Like my parents never sort of dictated how we should be or who we should be. And so I think I've always felt the freedom to kind of express myself in an uninhibited way. And I think for someone who writes a lot of personal things, you have to be a bit uninhibited and look your fears in the face and not be afraid to be self-deprecating or be personal or be vulnerable. And I really credit my parents because I think those qualities have benefited me a lot, both in my writing, my professional life, and also in my personal life.
It's funny because the way you describe it sounds almost like potential for ADD, but
Right.
the writing helps you channel it in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I probably have ADD, I think. I'm like definitely hyperactive in some ways. And again, I have to give huge credit to my mom on this. She's a school counselor, and she's worked with kids K through 12, helping them through challenges and issues all throughout their lives. And there's a big push now in education and in medicine just to like push pills on kids. Like let's medicate, like let's give Ritalin and let's like dumb these kids down. And my mom being a counselor and being the type of person who wants to talk through issues and talk about relationships and talk about the environment you're in and actually understand the psychological and emotional and environmental factors that go into making a kid who they are. She was always super resistant to putting me on medicine. And a lot of my teachers would say, you know, Ben's a little hyperactive. Like, you know, my mom will say, well, what do you mean? And they'd be like, well, sometimes he just gets up in the middle of class and just sort of walks around. And my mom would be like, well, is it disruptive to the other kids? And the teacher would be like, no. And my mom would be like, well, is it disruptive to Ben's studies? And they'd be like, no. And she'd be like, I don't see what the problem is. And she always wanted to see, and I credit my dad too on this because he was totally supportive. They always wanted to see what sort of the environmental factors were and how they could go on a non-medicated solution to keep me focused and keep me productive. And at the same time, not to squash my energy or my creativity, because I think it would have been easy for them to put me on medicine and I sort of would have been a shell of myself. And it's interesting that now at work, I have a standing desk. And when I am feeling restless or feeling bored, I get up and I walk around and I dance or I move or I sit down or I stand on my head. And those are the ways that I've always sort of let off that energy. And those are always the ways that I've had to sort of adapt to keep myself focused. And so I think that having the permission to sort of let off energy in a way that felt productive and non-disruptive to other people, and also allowed me to stay true to my creativity and my energy has benefited me, you know, from kindergarten all through now.
So nowadays, when you're writing, do you still do the same thing? You say you have a standing desk. When you're in the middle of writing, it's still happening like that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I get up because the other thing is I love to dance. I was debating tonight between telling you that writing made me happy and dance makes me happy, and those are the two real things that make me happy. And they sort of flex different muscles or fulfill different parts of my needs. But yeah, like I'll just get up. Like I've never been one. I'm a super late adopter to like technology. Like I'm not like a scroller. I have like a shitty, you know, old phone. Like I refuse to have my work like email and Slack and Trello on my phone. I don't have a Facebook. Like I have a professional Facebook page so I can like post my writing, but I have this like rogue fake Facebook page, a personal page that has no friends that allows me to like have a professional page. So I sort of like game the system. It's like an alter ego, like a fake, friendless, weird, faceless alter ego. And all that's to say that like, I don't really connect well with technology. I'm not like a scroller and like a clicker. I hate to read on the internet. So whenever I'm looking at a computer screen, it's because I'm writing and it's because I'm focused and because I want to be doing that. And then if I'm not writing and looking at a screen, I'm like up, I'm moving around, I'm like stretching, I'm like dancing. And it's just sort of the way it works for me. And I don't think it works for other people, but I'm really lucky that I'm even now like working in an office that people just get it. Like they don't even notice the shenanigans and the antics. Like I like to wear costumes sometimes. Like I'll put on silly glasses or a top hat or a wig just because it gets me out of my head. And people just sit at their desks and are totally unfazed by this after like 4 years. They just don't care.
They're
and
so
I
used
don't,
to it.
yeah. And I don't care for them to care. It just works. It works for me.
So wait, I want to unpack something you said. You said you don't read online and you don't like to do social media, but you write for online publications and you do something.org is mostly online campaigns. How do you reconcile that?
It's a weird disconnect for me, and one that I haven't quite reconciled, and one that I'll probably never really reconcile, because I think the way that it works for me is based on intentionality. So I think one of the dangers that people get into with technology is the idea of like, just because you could means you should. Like they make that sort of, they sort of like connect those dots in their mind. And I think that's erroneous in some ways. So I even wrote about this one time. I wrote about like questions you should ask yourself before you start online dating. And so my sort of theory is that like online dating and dating apps aren't inherently good or inherently bad. They're like right for some people at certain times in their lives and wrong for some people. And they're wrong for other people for different reasons at different times. I think the danger is when people feel like they have to be on online dating apps or spend their energy or spend their time there in order to succeed or in order to have a robust sort of like romantic or social life. And so I think we'd all be a lot healthier and a lot happier if we took like a really critical look at how we engage with technology and whether it makes us happier or whether it makes us less happy. There's so much available, and it's available 24 hours a day anywhere in the world. And I think we feel like because it's available, it must be right or it must be necessary. And so when it comes to technology, whether it's social media, like not having a Facebook, or the way I use Twitter or don't use Twitter, or the way I use LinkedIn or don't use LinkedIn, whatever it is, all those things I want to approach with a real sense of intentionality and a real sense of self-awareness and honesty over whether they make my life better or whether they make my life worse. And I think that's always changing. But as long as I'm asking myself those questions and answering honestly, that's the best I can do.
And specifically as a writer, does technology make you happier or less happy?
In some ways, it makes me happier. In some ways, it makes me less happy, I guess, with everything. I mean, one thing as far as process, and again, I like to be really sort of critical and really intentional about my process with writing. And I know that I have to start with a pen and paper. And I try to bring in a computer, bring in a word processor as late in the process as possible. And so I think I sort of have to make that distinction as to where in the process technology works for me and where it takes away. I also think that, like, you know, the internet is not this like amorphous sort of homogenous blob. Like the internet is so nuanced and so diverse and eclectic, just like the world, right? I mean, there are beautiful places online. Like I think DoSomething.org is such a beautiful place. Obviously I'm biased, but it's just so positive and so necessary. And then you can fill in the blank for the places on the internet that are the opposite of that, just like the ugliest bowels of the entire universe, right? And so I think that for my writing, I always want to be existing in places on the internet that are really positive, and I always want my writing to be a reflection of myself, or of like the best version of myself. And a lot of that will dictate where I'll pitch and where I won't pitch.
So can you walk us through a little more about your process when you're writing? How does it feel? What goes through your head? What's that emotional and psychological process like?
Yeah, totally. And I love that you asked this question. And this is the question that I ask to like every creative person that I know. Like if I meet you and I find out you do something even marginally creative, whether professionally or at an amateur level, it doesn't matter. Like I think process across creativity is so fascinating because it's as different as every single person is. And so I would love to hear a lot more people answer this question. I mean, one thing I'll say is that I'm really picky, and I think a lot of creative people are, and I'm like a total diva throughout the whole process. I'm like such a brat. I'm like, I have to have like the temperature this, at 74 degrees, and I have to be wearing this. Like I need my t-shirt to be tight in the neck. Like I need like a taut crew neck, and I need like baggy shorts and like no socks. Like it's all super particular. So like the main sort of on a, like the main bullet points here, like the first thing is always like with a pen and paper, with a notebook of like a very specific color and a very specific pen color. Like
what are the colors?
Well, I need, so like I never like I have this notebook here, which the listeners will not be able to see, but every notebook has to be a different color because I like to keep, and I like to date every page and date the notebooks. And so I can have this like finite, like every notebook should sort of be like its own world and should be kind of its own time capsule. So I want every notebook to be a different color. And then every writing session, like 2 different days or 2 different writing sessions can't have the same color pen. So like if I write on Thursday, I need it to like be in black pen. If it's on a Friday, I need to be in blue pen. And then
is it always Thursday black and Friday blue?
Not necessarily. They just can't be back to back. And like sometimes I'll like not really pay attention, and like Friday I'll like write something in black, and then if I'm going out to a coffee shop, I'll like just like grab a pen and grab a notebook. And this happened the other night, and I like opened my notebook, and like the previous night was black, and I had a black pen, and I was like, shit, this is not going to work. I was like freaking out. I like went to the barista. I'm like, I am not even going to explain to you, like you don't care what the reason is here, but can I just have like a blue or red pen? And he's like, all right, I guess. And it was like, he did not get it. It was like such a mundane thing for him. And for me, it was like so liberating. I was like, yes, like I felt like I'd been unshackled. It was amazing. So so it's always like pen and paper with these like very specific kind of criteria. And then I like to get started, on a weekend or on a day when I don't have anything for like an extended period of time. Like if I know I have like 4 or 5 hours where I don't have to do anything, I rarely take 4 or 5 hours, but I like to sort of have that seemingly endless block of time. And ideally I would like do something active in the morning, like take a yoga class or like work out. And then I would like eat a meal, and then I would just like go to a coffee shop with my notebook and my pen and just like sit down and just like free write, ideate, brainstorm, just like no wrong answers and no boundaries whatsoever. And that part of it is so exciting for me. It feels like skydiving. Like I'm a really, really I'm outgoing. And so people think I'm like crazy and like way out there, but I'm a really, really conservative, not a conservative person, but I'm cautious and I'm like calculated and I'm reserved in a lot of ways. And I think that surprises people because I seem like such an extrovert and I'm outgoing and I'm, seem funky or whatever, but like I am a fearful, anxious person. Like I've lived with anxiety my whole life, and to be able to just have that time writing is such a thrill for me. Like it is such a rush. I like can't even describe it. And then after that, it's different. Like lots of times if I sort of find a nugget of something, I'll write as much as I can just about that sort of nugget. And then maybe I would go back later and consolidate that and write it into a pitch for someone. Or maybe if I felt, passionate enough about it, I would just write everything. I would write everything on a piece of paper that I could think of it. and then I would take it to a computer and just literally transcribe like all the notes. And then I outline. I'm like a big outliner and organizer. So I would like outline the bullet points of like what the piece should be, and then start to like plug in just some of those random like scribblings and notes. And then once I sort of had the roadmap lined up, like the whole skeleton, then I would start to finesse what the actual words and sentences would say. So like there are a lot of people who can just sit down and be like, oh, I just started writing, or like they could just like bang something out. And I am like a very calculated, slow, methodical writer, which again might surprise some people, but it works. It works for me, I think.
Your writing process sounds like the writing equivalent of my designing process that I do visually. So I totally understand what you're saying. I'm so slow at designing because I need to take my time and do my research and do the outlines and the sketches and all this stuff. And people say I'm so prolific, but I don't feel I am. Do you feel that way? Like, do you have a lot out there, but do you feel prolific, or do you feel that because your process is so slow, you don't see that?
Yeah, I just feel like I'm never producing enough. Like I could always be writing more. I could always be getting more published. I could always be pitching more. And so I think a lot of what I do is like trying to rearrange my life so I can have more writing time, so I can feel like that carrot I'm always chasing is close enough to my grasp that I can actually lunge for it. And I don't, whenever I'm writing on a small scale, like on a day to day or week to week, I don't feel like I'm in a rush. Like a lot of people love like deadlines and sort of having that fire under them and that sense of urgency. I don't work well like in those kinds of circumstances. It would be great if I were to write something over 500 words or 800 words, if I had like 5 or 7 days, like that would be ideal if I could sit down and put my all into it. So I didn't have to rush. So I could just be methodical, and productive at the same time. But in the larger sense, or like in the macro existential sense, I feel like I haven't done enough and I'm not doing enough. And so I feel this enormous sense of urgency all the time to be able to say no to things and push responsibilities and obligations to the side to free up time to write. Like a lot of people want to write, but it's the easiest thing not to do, because it's sort of exhausting. It's, you're in solitude, like it's a lonely endeavor. And if you're like anything like me and you're a total diva, you need super specific circumstances to do it. And so I think something that really helps my writing is my ability or my improved ability to say no to other things, which is something that's hard to do. And it's getting easier, I think, or I hope.
I was laughing when you mentioned again your circumstances of being a diva when you were talking about your color notebooks.
Yeah.
The audience can see this, but my bullet journal is bright yellow.
Yeah.
And I don't change my ink, but this is actually my notebook for something else. This is my bright orange bullet journal, and I have to write in green. And if I don't have my green pen with me, I freak out.
Yeah.
So I don't know, you mentioned again this special circumstance. I'm like, I totally get it.
It's paralyzing. It's totally, it's handicapping. It's like, well, I was going to go jogging today, but like, my feet got cut off. So I guess I can't do that.
I mean, I can write elsewhere. If I'm writing on like loose paper or somewhere else, it can be another color. But in this notebook, it has to be my green ink.
Yeah. I love that. I want to actually, this is sort of getting off topic, but, just talking about process and across mediums is so interesting to me. And I just had this idea for an article or like a series where I just talk to creatives about their notebooks, like about their writing utensils and about like the pens and the pencils and the graph paper, the lined or the not lined, and like just hearing the ways that all creatives sort of share these like idiosyncrasies and these requirements, which I think is so interesting. And I wrote something a few months ago, sort of about the way creative people, and I'd love to know if you fall into this category. A lot of creative people have like a sort of like a personal victory celebration that they do when they create something that they love or they're like super proud of. And so like I talked to one of my like my girlfriend, her name is Sunny. She's a photographer and a filmmaker, and when she makes something that she loves, like she puts the final edits on something, she like has this like imaginary sword, you know, it's like in Hook or something. She like pulls out an imaginary sword and like splays everything and just like stabs things like all around her apartment. And one of my friends, Matt, he's a musician, he's a keyboardist, and like when he composes something that he loves, like he literally just like finishes the piece and then like just like humps his keyboard. Like he'll just like literally like he'll just hump his piano and talking to all these different folks about the weird things that they do totally on their own that really drives home this idea of like the creative process and creating being so exhilarating that we do things by ourselves that are totally out of the ordinary and totally bizarre. Like if I'm sitting at home and I'm watching something super funny by myself, I won't laugh because I'm like, oh, like being by myself, for some reason I don't laugh. But if I like write something that I love, I'll just be by myself and I'll just be like, yeah, come on. Like I go like total Rafa Nadal fist pumping on it. So that is like, that's the release. Like that is the outward manifestation of all that inner exhilaration that I think I feel and a lot of people feel. Do you have one of those? Do you have like a thing that you do?
I don't think I do.
Okay. Or maybe you're not aware of it.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking. Like, am I not aware of it? Maybe I do stuff like I do sometimes like get excited. Like when I yes, I got this. Like I do react, but not as epic as your stories.
Well, pay close attention because maybe you're sort of having like an out of body experience, or you're so kind of swept up in the exhilaration that you don't realize it. Of course, not everyone is so outward, but a lot of people are, and it's just super funny. I love it. I
just like crave brownies when I'm just working. Okay. You know, like if I'm working too much in something, I'll just like stress eat or stuff like that. But I'll have to think about it.
Let me know. One woman, she's a writer. She told me that when she writes something, she just goes and eats a whole cheese pizza by herself. She's like, I deserve this. And she just gets a full cheese. She's like, I don't even like pizza that much. And she'll just house a full cheese. So, maybe brownies are your thing. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Although now this semester I'm teaching, and the school that I'm teaching at, I'm having, tuna wraps and French fries. And today I had a donut. Just,
you deserve it.
I deserved it when I was like 50 pounds lighter and I could afford it. Now it's like, okay, now go to the gym and,
What kind of donut was it though? I'm curious. I love donuts. I love donut talk.
Chocolate glazed.
Yeah. No cream or anything. Just like classic glazed.
No, but I mean, it was like school cafeteria stuff,
Oh, but still, it's so good. I went to Japan last year, and for some reason, I guess this happens to some people when they travel. The other people in Japan told me this, that they have cravings for like weird stuff. And so I was in Japan for a month, and I craved 7-Eleven prepackaged donuts for a month straight. And I ate like 4 of those a day. And I don't know why. Like, I don't like 7-Eleven. Not a big donut fan, but it was like I was pregnant and just having weird cravings, just like housing
Ben,
donuts.
Is there something you do tell us? Are you expecting?
I might be. If you gave the video version of this, you might get the answer to that.
It's pink.
Yeah.
So wait, was that 7-Eleven donuts in Japan? Did they have them over there, or when you came back?
Yeah, when I was there. Yeah, there's a 7-Eleven like everywhere in Japan. I think actually a Japanese company bought 7-Eleven. I may have made that up, but that's something that I heard. Yeah, they're all over the place.
That's when I went to Beijing, and we went to the Forbidden City, and there used to be a Starbucks in this Forbidden City.
Wow, that's I hate that.
It recently, it's like, oh, you're traveling to the other side of the world to Japan to experience culture and get 7-Eleven donuts.
Exactly. I wish I didn't want the donuts so much, but I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist the donuts.
Well, what, you were rewarding yourself for something?
I think it was just a craving. I'm sure if I talked to my therapist about it, I could get to the bottom as to like what sort of like repressed memory made me, like being in a place that was totally unfamiliar made me like want home or want familiarity. Actually, it reminds me that my dad, when I was younger, I don't remember how this started exactly, but he used to like sneak me in Krispy Kreme donuts to my house. Like he would just bring in boxes of like 6 or like 12 Krispy Kremes and give them to me, and I would like stash them away in my room and just house these donuts. And after a while, he started giving them to me, and I don't even think I asked for them. Like it was for him. You know what I mean? Like it made him feel really good to give me those donuts. And I was like, well, like might as well eat them. And like, we always thought we were sort of tricking my mom, but my mom is really smart. A, because I'm the second child, and B, because she's a school counselor. So she knows all the things. Like she knows all the things. Like she was not tricked by a single thing that I ever tried to do. And so like years later, she like made some comment about like, oh yeah, you like sneaking in Ben those donuts like after all those years. And I think my dad like tried to deny it or something. He was like, what? Like, I don't remember. Like he pretended to like have amnesia. And my mom was like, you like you actually thought you're getting away with that? Like you silly men. Like that. Like that.
Mom knows everything.
Oh, she knew. She definitely knew. Yeah. She knew everything.
So can we talk for a second? You mentioned you're the second child. Before you said you have an older sister and younger sister. Can we talk being middle children?
Yeah. Oh, let's do that. Yeah. So
I'm a middle child.
Orly's younger, and tell me about your older sibling.
Eduardo, he's 2 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
So we grew up less than 2 years apart. So we grew up like almost like twin brothers.
Yeah.
Actually, because I always was heavier and ate more. I looked bigger, and when we traveled, people were like, "Are you guys twins?" Because our parents dress us the same.
Adorable.
Yeah, and he hated it. And I remember this one time he was wearing something, and I put the same thing on purpose. And I was like, "All right, we're ready to go." He's like, "Go change." I'm like, "No, we're ready, ready to go." And then Orly's 11 years younger than me, so I was a younger child, and then I was a middle child.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my friend says I'm like the most well-adapted middle child she knows, which at the same time is like, all right, thank you, because it means I'm not really screwed up. But then also, like, are we messed up? Is there
low standards? Yeah, low standards for how well-adjusted middle children should be, I guess.
Yeah. Is that a thing for you, being a middle child?
So it's interesting because I'm a middle child and I'm the only boy, and so I think that kind of that just had a creates a different dynamic. I think it sort of put me in the position, and my therapist and I'll have to do some more psychoanalysis of this, of being a peacekeeper.
That's what we do.
That's what we do. And I'm sure there are books written on this. So I'm not saying anything that's original or interesting, but like in my personal experience, I always felt like if my parents like weren't getting along or whatever, I always wanted everyone to be happy and like be smiles. And I think with my sisters, I just think it's hard. I mean, I think being an adolescent is hard in general for anyone. I think my sisters, I think it's especially hard like for a girl, maybe. I'm just guessing. I don't know. But I think like I was lucky that my sort of adolescence and my growing up felt like pretty smooth, and I was really lucky in a lot of ways. And I think my sisters, for different reasons, just had to face more challenges than I did. And so I think if there were ever sort of drama or ever kind of turmoil or unrest, I always just wanted to be I always just want to make everyone happy. And I think that that's part of like where my humor comes from. I think I used humor to sort of like disarm my family members and calm situations down. I think I tend to get along with people who other people find intimidating. Like people will be like, oh, like so-and-so is so intimidating, or like, I can't like crack her. And I'm like, she seems like it's sweet to me. Like I just sort of feel like I can disarm people in some ways, which I think is positive. And then I also like, I think it also helped me. I really like spending time by myself. And I think that if I wasn't sort of getting the attention that I needed, or as a lot of younger children, or a lot of middle children don't feel like they're getting, I just sort of learned to be with myself and to like play with my action figures in my room and to like write stories and like, draw, like make designs of like sneakers I would design and things like that. And so I think a lot of that has contributed to sort of my current disposition, which is being outgoing and being someone who feels comfortable around people and wants to make other people feel comfortable. And at the same time, being someone who like really thrives from being alone. And I do my best work and my best thinking, and I feel most at ease actually when I'm alone. And I think probably a lot of that comes from being a middle child.
So it sounds like you're an introvert, but you can put yourself out there as an extrovert when you want to or when you need to?
I think so. Like that sounds right when you say it. I also sometimes feel weird sort of like labeling myself as that or saying that aloud, because sometimes when I stand next to other people who are definitely introverts or who are more like secure in their introversion, I'm like, wait, if you're an introvert, I'm not that. Like I'm not like, I don't think I'm an introvert, but I think you're right. I think I'm an outgoing introvert, maybe. I should also say, and who knows whether this will make it on the air, but like, I don't want to make it out to be that like my sisters aren't well adjusted or that like it wasn't a happy household. I think my parents are extremely supportive and loving, and I have always had such a positive and close relationship with my sisters. I think it was just especially during those adolescent years when they were maybe experiencing some of that typical kind of adolescent drama that I sort of developed some of these tendencies.
Yeah. No, I think you spoke very highly of everyone. I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Okay, good. They'll kill me. No, they're great.
They'll disown you and never talk to you again.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. I deserve it.
So I want to hear, we talk about your writing, we talk about your family, we talk about being a middle child. I want to hear about your dancing, because you said dancing also makes you happy.
Yeah, so happy. So happy. Yeah, dance was one of the things that I started because my parents let me and because my sister did it and I thought it was the coolest. And so I grew up I started like creative movement classes, which is still like the coolest name for a class. Like still when I say the words creative movement together, I get this like little sort of like flicker. I'm like, oh my God, those two words just get me going in like such a personal way. So I did like creative movement classes where you'd like run around and like be a dolphin and like be an ice cream cone. It was like the best for a 4-year-old kid with way too much energy. And then I did like ballet and tap and jazz and hip hop. And in college I got into breaking. And so I did breaking for a while. And now my body is like just falling apart. I have these neck issues, which I was telling you about before we started, and my feet are falling apart. Like my last Google search was, how do I make my orthotics stop squeaking? Like I have the body of like an old dead woman. I feel not good. I look great. No, but
and you're 20.
I'm 27, and I'm the oldest person I know. And so like breaking has been getting harder. It's been more taxing on my old man body. And so I've been getting into different styles like house dance. And yeah, dancing has just always been something that I've done and something that's always given me so much joy in totally different ways than writing does. And having the balance of those two things is something that I feel really privileged to be able to experience.
Which one came first, the writing or the dancing?
The dance came first. Yeah. I think that's sort of maybe how it worked in history too. Like movement, and expression, physical expression came before language and all of that. It's like much more sort of primal. And so the dance came first and the writing came after.
And you mentioned the dancing, your parents put you in classes. How did the writing come?
Writing came, I guess from school. I guess I started writing in school, like in class, and then it was something I always enjoyed, and I think something I was always pretty good at, but it wasn't something that I loved in the way that I love or the way that I need it now until probably college, and maybe even then not till like right after college when I was working a job that I was really bad at, that was really bad for me. I was doing product development for Macy's, and I was working in the bath department. I produced the towels, and I was so bad at this job and so unfit for it. And I think the only reason I got the job, I mean, one thing is that I did well in college. Like I did well in school, so I had good grades and things like that. And I didn't get any of like the writing jobs or any of the jobs that I wanted right out of school because I felt ill prepared to do that, which is sort of a different story. But I think the reason I got this job is like through affirmative action. Like I think being a straight guy, they were like, we need to get some like straight dudes in here. Like it was like sort of fashion, and Macy's was like the one industry where being just like a regular white dude with a beard was like, wow, this is like real diversity. This is like really unique for us. They were like, and he likes girls? Get him in here. You're hired. So yeah,
like reverse diversity.
It was like reverse affirmative action. There was like an anti-quota or something. Like I think I went in with this class of like 21 of us, and there were like 2 straight dudes or something. We were like unicorns. But I was just not. I have so many funny stories from there, and I met so many hilarious and wonderful people. And I would just do this job at Macy's all day, and I feel really fortunate for it for a lot of reasons. But the main one is that it allowed me to move to New York and to pursue writing. And so I would just go and work at Macy's all day and be so bad at it and get yelled at because my clothes were not up to standard, which was totally justified of them to yell at me. And then I would like eat dinner. I would like come home and make myself like some Totino's pizza rolls and like have some like scoops and hummus. And then I'd be like, I'm getting out of here. Like I got to go write. And my roommates, I lived at the time in this like horrible apartment in the best location. It was like, there were 3 of us. It was filled with like mice and rats. And it was it was below like livable standards. It was terrible. And I'd like leave this apartment, and my roommates would be like, where are you going? And I'd be like, guys, I just can't do towels forever. And I just got bit with this bug where I would just like work all day and then go home and write all night. And it's been that way ever since. I just haven't stopped doing that.
And does the writing ever intercross with the dancing?
Less than you might expect. Actually, one of my favorite things that I ever wrote, it never got published anywhere. I pitched it. I couldn't get it published. And I just like put it up on my Tumblr page. And it's one of my favorite. It's one of the things that I'm most proud of. I wrote it like 4 or 5 years ago. It's about this dancer whose name is Kid David, who happens to be Jewish. And the article, it's a 2-part profile, and it's called The Funkiest Jew Alive. And he's just like this Jewish world-class b-boy. And the story felt so personal, and it just turned out really well. And then sort of since then, I've kind of, had some dance ideas like percolating over the last like 4 or 5 years, but nothing has really come to fruition. And sometimes I feel like sometimes I feel like there should be overlap in there. And now I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I don't need to force that. Like if that happens, if that Venn diagram, kind of intersects, great. But if not, like, I'm just happy to keep those two really sacred things, separate, and that's fine.
Well, perhaps in a way, like you have to do something at org and you have your freelance and then you have your dance separate and they each have their own buckets.
I hadn't thought of it on those terms, and I think you're absolutely right. Yeah. And I think like buckets and segmentation and separation are really important for me in a lot of ways. And I think that, yeah, just to sort of come to terms with the sort of separation of those buckets would probably make me feel more at ease with both. So thank you for articulating it like that.
Let's a little role playing. Let's imagine that, or not role playing, but pretend. Let's pretend that you have your ultimate day, week, month of creating, writing, dancing, whatever you want. What would that look like? What would that feel like?
For someone who needs structure, the thought of that is pretty terrifying. It induces a lot of anxiety. I mean, I think it's not to avoid the question, which I might end up doing, and if I avoid it, it'll be unintentional, but I've sort of reflected on this interview in a lot of ways already and realized that you'll ask me a question and then I just totally don't answer it at all. I just say something totally different. I just say whatever I want to say. I'm like a politician. Like whatever you ask me, I'll just say what I want to say.
We'll fact check you later. And
yeah. Yeah. By the way, it should be noted, I don't know if this will make it on the air, that we are doing this interview during the debate, during the first presidential debate. So I think that I hate to hear myself talk. Like hearing the sound of my own voice is a really painful thing, but hearing the sound of the debate and of a certain candidate's voice is like the most jarring thing. So this is like hearing myself talk for an hour is like slightly better than hearing.
So I was wondering if you were like, because we scheduled this like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you were like, oh wait, no, I'd rather watch the debate than be.
I should have like thought that far ahead, and I was just not. I was like, oh, Monday, yeah, great, let's do it. So I'm sorry if I'm taking you away from the debate.
Oh, I'm not even a citizen. I can't vote, so
okay.
It's fine.
Okay, but your voice still matters. That's the thing. Is your influence on folks. Anyway, what was the question? Oh, if I had like a perfect whatever. I mean, I think one thing that I'll say, because I need structure, and I think a lot of creative folks work well outside of structure, or I have friends who like full-time freelance, and that the idea of that is really scary and really unappealing to me on a lot of levels. And so I think like one of the things that I appreciate about my current situation is that I have do something on like a 40 or 50 hour week where I go to an office and there's like intentionality about being in that space and being there for the time. And then the rest of the time, because it's more limited, sort of has guardrails, and I have to be really decisive and really discriminatory about how I spend the hours from 6 to midnight or whatever. So I think maybe this is kind of sad, or maybe it just means I feel really happy right now, is that I don't think I would change too much about like my current week if I had a choice. Or like maybe I would do something like 4 days a week, and I would have like my Fridays to just like write and ideate and do my thing. Or maybe I wouldn't have to go into do something till like 10 or 11, so I could go to a dance session or like a party or a jam or a battle until 1 a.m. and not feel like too guilty about it. But I think it would be some combination of like working during the day and doing like really fulfilling, meaningful work at do something, and then coming home and like having a quick dinner, and then just being able to like write all night, like for 3 or 4 nights. Then maybe another night I would, go to like a dance session or a party, and like another night or two I would spend time with my girlfriend. And not to say that I don't want to spend more time with her than that, but one of the reasons that we work is because she's also a creative and she makes films and photos, and she needs her time and her independent time to like work on her craft. And so that's one of the things I like about our relationship, is that we have this, connectedness, and we spend time together, and quality time and meaningful time. And at the same time, we allow each other the space to work on our creative endeavors, which sometimes involves collaboration, but most of the time involves being separate, which is one of my favorite things about our relationship and something I really enjoy about her. So see what you did there? You asked me about my perfect week, and then I just talked about Sunny. So it meandered, but we got somewhere.
Yeah. And I'm sure Sunny makes you happy, so it's good.
Super happy, really happy. Yeah, absolutely.
Is there any piece of writing or any dance that you can say made you the happiest?
So sort of an interesting piece between dance, like sort of a difference between dance and writing for me, is that I really love reading my own writing. Like I just enjoy it, and I'm proud of it, and it makes me feel good, and it fuels me. And I hate seeing myself dance. Like when I dance, I love the way I feel, and I hate the way I look. It's like a weird like body dysmorphia thing. Like I don't know exactly how like eating disorders like anorexia works, and I'm not comparing myself to that, but it's sort of a seemingly similar phenomenon where like people will tell me like, I love to watch you dance, or like, I love the way you look when you dance. And then I'll see a video of myself and I will just hate it. I'll just be like appalled. And so that's one of the reasons I like don't like to be recorded when I dance. One of the reasons I don't love to take classes, because I don't like to see myself in the mirror. Dancing for me is something that's totally kind of like kinesthetic and totally physical. And I don't have to think, and I don't have to look, and I don't have to worry about whether I look cool. It just is something that exists for me and exists in a moment that kind of goes away. It's like seeing an improv show or like having a first kiss or something. Like it's something that you can't recreate. And I sort of love how ephemeral it is, that it just is there for like a moment or an hour or a night, and then it goes away. And with writing, it's the total opposite. Like I love going back and reviewing my writing and rereading it and reflecting and kind of like patting myself on the back. So I think I'd say the dance stuff that I'm most proud of is nothing, because I hate the way I look. But writing, yeah, there are like a few pieces that I feel proud of, or that I feel like really represent who I am. I wrote an essay about my relationship with Sunny and sort of all the bizarre gifts we've given each other and sort of what that says about our relationship. And I wrote something for a publication called Human Parts, which was such a wonderful and vibrant publication. It sadly doesn't exist anymore, but it was called A Tiny Anthology of 5 Unordinary People. And it was just these little vignettes about these sort of pithy and powerful little snapshots of people that I met who I thought were just extraordinary. So I think as of now, those two things make me feel good and make me feel proud. And then one of the cool things, or just one of the real things, is that maybe in 6 months or a year, I'll hate both of those things, because my relationship with my writing is always evolving, and our relationship with ourselves is always evolving. Like it's, like I'll look back on pictures of myself from 6 months or 2 years or 5 years ago and be like, that was my haircut, or like that's what I wore then, like that was it, and so I do that with writing, but instead of sort of lamenting like, oh, my stuff was so weak back then, I just try to focus on my growth since then. It's like, oh, I didn't like that then because I've gotten better since then.
All right, Ben, let's move on to the rapid fire section. I have a few quick questions about different things that make you happy, and I just want your gut reaction. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
What is the first happy moment you can remember?
Oh, when you asked me, I was like, I'm gonna nail this. I watch a lot of Family Feud, and they do like the fast money at the end. I'm always like sitting on the couch with my roommate, like crushing it. And I am balking. I don't know. I have such a bad memory. Can I say I don't know?
Of course.
Okay.
I usually ask this later. I never ask this one first, but it's my favorite question to ask.
Yeah.
So I just threw it out first.
Oh, I'm glad you did. Yeah. Show no mercy. Like totally don't take it easy on me at all. But if I'm going to be on Fast Money on Family Feud, I know I'm going to have to prepare. I can't just, go on my laurels. So.
All right. So this is training for that.
Yeah, exactly. This has all just been training for my for my Family Feud debut. I would love to go on Family Feud with my family. That would be a delight.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to let me know so we can just watch and link to it.
For sure. Yeah.
All right, but rapid fire.
Let's do it. We got off the rapid fire.
When are you the happiest?
I am the happiest when I am sitting on a high stool on a Saturday early afternoon near a big window with a cup of coffee and a pen and a notebook.
Do you have a happy color?
Mustard, like mustard yellow.
That's very specific.
I love mustard. I would never wear it. I don't have any items that are mustard yellow, but that color triggers something in me. I think it's such a beautiful color. And I hate mustard, the condiment. I think it's disgusting. The grossest.
Is there a movie or a song that makes you happy?
So many. The first one that came to mind is Moonrise Kingdom. I think it's such a beautiful movie and such a beautiful love story. I think it's one of the best love stories ever told.
Are you big on Wes Anderson, or is that specific one that
I like Wes Anderson a lot. I feel so cliche saying that. I'm like a white bearded guy in Brooklyn. I'm 27. I love Wes Anderson. It's like the most like cliche thing to say ever, but I just think part of it is the aesthetic, obviously. Part of it is the storytelling. I just think he tells amazing and compelling and bizarre stories. And I just think more than maybe any other director now, he just creates entire universes that are unique. Like he creates whole worlds that could only exist through his lens. And I think that's an extremely powerful and compelling thing to see. And see how that changes from film to film.
Another rapid fire. Who is the happiest person you know?
I think my dog is pretty happy. That's not a person, is it? The happiest person I know. Oh, that's so hard. I want to go with my friend Naomi Hirabayashi. I think she, maybe it's just because I just went to her wedding this weekend and she was probably the happiest she'd ever been in her life, but she is so positive and joyful and effervescent. She radiates happiness to everyone. And I think and hope that sort of goes down to the core of her. I hope she's as happy as I think she is and as I want her to be.
That's wonderful. So much happiness to her and her new husband.
Yes.
And their new life.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing everything that makes you happy and the weddings and the trips you've taken that make you happy. Where can we find you? Where can we learn more about you? And I want to hear more about DoSomething.org also. Yeah.
So for my freelance stuff, you can find me at benkassoy.com. On social media, which I am relatively inactive on, but I'm at B Kassoy, Kassoy, everywhere. So definitely say hey. I actually I just love to talk to people, interact with people. So please reach out. And then DoSomething.org, like I said, we're activating 5.3 million young people around the world to take action around the causes that matter to them. We're making social change more fun and more accessible than ever before. And we're giving young people the chance to be part of something bigger than themselves. So if we're running a campaign where we collect jeans for local shelters, or if we're running a campaign where you write cards, Valentine's cards for seniors living in isolation, or if you collect peanut butter for your local food bank, you can do all of those things by yourself. Any young person can go into their community and do that. But what DoSomething.org does is makes you a part of this global community of folks who are doing the same thing at the same time. And so we are taking individuals and turning individuals into communities, and turning communities into this global collective of young people all united under this umbrella of making positive change in big and small ways. And I'd highly encourage you and all the listeners to visit DoSomething.org and see the ways young people are making this world a better place in so many ways on a daily basis. And also encourage you to sign up for a campaign and to join the movement.
And we just go do something.org and click on a campaign, and that's how we can sign.
Yeah. It's just that easy to become a member. All you need to do is sign up for a campaign or make an account with your name and either a phone number or an email address. And you can sign up for any campaign right there. I send a weekly email to our list with all of our new launching campaigns. So if you want to see me, if you want to see my beautiful face and my aching body in your inbox, sign up for our email list. I will say it's just a headshot, so my face is there, and you're going to have to sort of infer the pain that my body's in at all times. And if you sign up for our text message list, my colleague Freddie will send you text message updates on all the amazing campaigns you can do and the ways you can take action. And I've been working there for 4 years, almost 4 years now. And I've just never been prouder of the work that we as a staff are doing. And I've never been prouder or more amazed at the power and the passion young people have to make change. It's so inspiring. And it makes me want to get up and go to work every day. And it gives me hope for the future of the country and the future of the world. And I would love, for you, Bernardo, and for your listeners to check us out at DoSomething.org and to see what all of the hype is about that I'm spitting right now.
And I'll put links on the show notes so that everyone can go there. Ben, thank you so much for sharing Everything Makes You Happy. Thank you for sharing DoSomething.org. This is such a great conversation. I really appreciate you joining me.
It is totally my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Ben, for sharing what makes you happy. It's been a very inspiring conversation and a lot of fun. And thanks everyone for listening. And don't forget, I want to hear from you for a special New Year's episode. Send a voice note to hello@thehappypodcast.com with your name, where you're from, and what will make you happy in 2017. A special thanks to Jason Zappolo for editing this episode, to Orly Margulies for social media help and for connecting me with Ben, and to Rocio Castañeda for ongoing support. You can get more information and notes for this episode at thehappypodcast.com/episode 40, and you can learn more about this project and get in touch with us through thehappypodcast.com. Don't forget, we're on social media. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Happy Podcast. And you can find the latest episodes on YouTube, youtube.com/thehappypodcast. If you like this episode, please go to iTunes and subscribe. That way you will get more episodes every week in your device. And if you want more people to find us, please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star review. That's the best way for others to learn about this project. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week.